Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live in the main watch. NHT's Ruthven Towers, Ruthven Road Towers. Why or why not press ahead with the project as planned? And in the second watch, the challenges that some men have in determining paternity. Mandatory DNA testing to prove who is the father. For our social media question, we ask, what are your thoughts on mandating paternity DNA testing? Share your responses in our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your comments later on in the program, but first, here's I quote.
And this morning's I quote, the time is always right to do what is right. Martin Luther King Jr.
Very powerful, Mason. How are you doing, sir?
Morning, I am blessed and highly flavored, sir. How are you? I'm great, man.
Same answer. The main watch will be back after this break.
At J&M Bank, we're bringing hope to you and your loved ones for the holidays. Give and receive the happiness you've looked forward to all year long. Get personal unsecured loans up to $5 million with low monthly payments, loans to boost your small business, and joyful rewards when you use your J&M Bank Visa credit card. So whether you're doing last-minute spending or getting ready for the new year, choose hope for the holiday. J&M Bank will help you find a way.
Black Friday Mega Madness, Black Friday Mega Madness, Black Friday Mega Madness. We have never had a sale this big. Get ready, Jamaica. This one is massive. November 26th to 28th at Home and Things. It's the Black Friday Mega Madness weekend at Home and Things. Every single item in store is 30 to 70% off this Friday only. And catch the Saturday and Sunday specials too. Black Friday Mega Madness weekend is on at Home and Things. All up road and Constant Spring Road. It's a Mega Madness weekend.
It's the countdown to Christmas, and Love 101's Christmas treat, Chock full of Love, is on our to-do list this Christmas. And speaking of list, here are some items you can donate. Personal hygiene care packages, adult diapers, toiletries, white cotton sheets, and more. It's time to give love this Christmas, and we want you to share some with our Chock full of Love beneficiary, the Sir John Golding Rehabilitation Center. Donation period ends Wednesday, December 15, 2021. You can drop off donations at Broadcast House, 81 Hagley Park Road, or for more information, contact the producer at 876-568-4744. That's 876-568-4744. It's a chock full of love.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. If you're planning on buying into one of the units at the Ruthven Road Towers, you probably need to make sure you have in the region of about $27 million, which is what could probably fetch you a one-bedroom apartment. And some will say this is too much money for a property being constructed by the National Housing Trust or constructed at their commission. And some would say, well, we can't afford to live there. On the other hand, what would necessarily be wrong with that? Because many persons contribute to the trust, and there are many types of solutions the trust provides. Why not provide housing solutions for persons who may not necessarily be at the lower end, but who are contributing to the trust? That can be another question. We have online today to discuss this very interesting but very important topic. I shouldn't even have said but very important topic. Mr. Micheal Diamond. He's the president of the Consumers Intervention Jamaica. And we should also be having online Mr. Howard Johnson, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Howard Johnson Realty and a director of the Real Estate Board and Commissioner of Strata Corporations. And he's also a past president of the Realtors Association of Jamaica. Good morning, Mr. Diamond, and good morning, Mr. Johnson. How are you both this morning?
Good morning. I'm well. And good morning to your listeners.
Yes, good morning, Stokeley. Good morning, Mr. Diamond, and all the Love FM listeners out there. I'm doing well as well.
Excellent. Now, jumping right into it. The trust, as many persons know, has a mandate, the National Housing Trust, in terms of providing housing solutions. It collects NHT contributions from all persons working, or certainly most, and these contributions are withdrawn from people's pay packages regardless of whether they want it to be withdrawn, and it is supposed to be submitted to the NHT. When these monies are submitted there, it goes into a huge pool, and the NHT has a history of being very cash rich. Now, there are different types of housing solutions and other housing related solutions it provides, chief among which are what is still called low income or low cost housing. Not meant to use those words in a pejorative sense at all. In fact, it's meant to use them in a positive sense, providing solutions for those who otherwise may have a challenge obtaining them. However, the Ruthven Road Towers issue has become a very live issue, and many people feel that those units are too expensive for the average contributor. I would say personally, I don't have an issue with it, but many do. And we want to hear all the voices this morning. Mr. Diamond, firstly, you, sir, what are your concerns, if any, about the Ruthven Road Towers project? Some have said it shouldn't even be completed as planned. We should just stop at phase one, don't go any further. What are your thoughts?
Well, considering the fact that for what the compulsory nature of the trust itself is great cause for concern. Now, from a commercial perspective, the development is, I guess it would be in line with what is happening right now. And for many that are in favor of it, perhaps they're looking at it from that perspective. Yet, when we look at it from the perspective for what the trust is and what it's supposed to be doing, this particular project is really ill-advised. It is ill-advised, and it is disingenuous to the mandate of the trust itself and to the individuals who are actually contributing to the trust. We have to also keep in mind, that we've heard explanations that, yes, there are those who, the rich also contribute to the trust, the poor contribute to the trust, so the rich should also get a benefit from the trust. That is, in a sense, that is a bit irresponsible to think of it on that level, because we are thinking mostly of the equality of it, but not the equity of it. And the reality of that situation is that if the trust wasn't compulsory, a lot of those individuals would not be contributing to that trust to begin with. The idea that the maximum payout under the trust is 6.5 million, yet we have property selling for over 30 million. This is something that truly is not in line with what the trust is supposed to be doing. Especially given the fact that a majority of contributors would never in their lifetime realize a benefit from NHT. So this is something that perhaps should have gotten a little bit more review. And again, to go forward with this, it would almost seem as if the government, is basically attempting to compete with the private sector, and the trust was never established to compete with the private sector, nor to operate as if it's a private sector entity. So that the idea behind these towers is totally irresponsible. And if we were to do a little bit more digging, we would find that there had to be some level of misappropriation to even allow this situation to reach
We
where it
don't
is
have
right
any
now.
evidence of misappropriation, and you are very clear in what you just said a while ago. And it's clear that you are speculating. We don't want to speculate on the morning watch, but continue your part without the speculation, Mr. Diamond, please.
No, man, definitely. I would say that notwithstanding that, there's no direct accusations against the NHT or anyone responsible from the initial stage of it,
Mr.
right?
Diamond, continue without speculating, sir, please.
Yeah, man. The thing about it is that when this trust was established, as we all know, and what they have on their website as far as whom they're supposed to be catering to, we are not saying that those who are in a better income bracket should not realize a benefit. But the greatest concern is this the type of benefit that they should be realizing, that we're going to build a development in the heart of New Kingston that can only afford a 1% of the population that can afford that, versus the fact that this is supposed to be for those who cannot afford to have their own suitable or quality housing in the first place. So are we looking at affordable housing, or we're just looking at access to housing? This is a situation that we really need to not just sweep over the fact that this was not designed for those who can afford a $40 million home.
Very interesting, but hold that thought, sir. We want to bring in Mr. Johnson before the break. Mr. Johnson, any thoughts?
Yes, and good morning, everyone. And I have heard the cries. I've heard both sides of the story, and albeit I do not have all the facts before me, but just from what I have read, what I have investigated on my own, and the information that has been brought to my attention, there is merit on both sides of the coin, and to strike a balance, I felt as though the mandate of the trust, it meant catering for, I think I recently heard the Prime Minister said that they are for 95% of what they do must be at a certain price point, which using your words, Stokely, would be along the lines of low income homes or affordable homes. But then what will the 5% accomplish, or what is the limit on that 5%? And I would want to support Mr. Diamond's point, because he did mention that 1% of the population would be able to afford, or contributors would be able to afford the product. So if you look at 95% of the resources that NHT has to go to going towards low income or affordable homes, and 1% being able to afford the other 5%, then I would say that they have not necessarily breached any of the mandates that have been given to them.
All that thought, Mr. Johnson, you just made a very interesting point, but we are upon a break. We must take that break now. Listen, stay with us. Very interesting conversation here. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch in a moment.
Between 2015 and 2020, there were 74,455 reports of child abuse in Jamaica. Report child abuse. Call 211.
The time brought to you by Child Protection Services is
7:16.
Here's why you can't afford to miss the Morning Watch.
I love listening to the Morning Watch because topics are discussed and issues are highlighted that are of major importance, which in turn edify me.
The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
I like listening to the Morning Watch. I find it very informative. I find it very interesting. The topics that are covered are very, very wide.
The Morning Watch, thought thought-provoking, insightful, current. Listen for the probing questions with attorney at law Stokeley Marshall and the in-depth discussion with Reverend Dr. Dylan Toussaint. The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The Morning Watch is on the family station Love 101. Every first and last Tuesday, the Morning Watch is brought to you by Home and Things, your construction finishes superstore.
It's the season for bonus with Virgin. Get 20% discount. A chance to win a grand prize of $200,000 in cash. Plus a share of $1 million in weekly cash and prizes. How to enter? Purchase any 2 gallons of eligible Virgin paints and receive an entry code. Visit www.virginpaints.mobi and enter the code along with your contact information. Promotion ends December 31st. It's the season for boldness with Virgin. Virgin for lasting beauty and protection.
My daughter calls me the
bestest dad ever.
And as her father, I have to live up to that. She looks to me for everything. But I have other responsibilities too. As a track coach, I have to guide my team to run on the track and not into trouble, cause plenty of that out there. My days don't stop, and neither can I. So I need something to take care of me while I take care of everybody else. That drink is Malta. And it tastes good too. Big up yourself, Malta.
Malta, full of life.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the main watch and we are looking at the topic in relation to the National Housing Trust. NHT, Ruthven Towers, Ruthven Road Towers, why or why not press ahead with the project as planned? Our guests are Micheal Diamond, President, Consumers Intervention Jamaica, and Howard Johnson, Chief Executive Officer of Howard Johnson Realty, Director of the Real Estate Board and Commission of Strata Corporations, one of the directors, and he is also a past president of the Realtors Association of Jamaica. Before the break, Mr. Johnson, you're making a very interesting point. Please continue that thought, sir.
Yes, so as I mentioned, and for those listeners who are just joining us, I was merely mentioning that I believe that the mandate of the trust, if I quote him correctly, the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned that the 95% of their resources should go towards low income and affordable housing. And therefore, I beg the question, what would the 5% and cater to, and how far above low income and affordable houses can they go? I don't have the answers to that, but Mr. Diamond had mentioned 1% of the populace or the contributors could afford the Ruthven. So therefore 1% may be able to tap into that 5% once in a blue moon, I should say, facility that the NHT is offering, because I do not hear of middle or high income developments from the NHT being announced very often. So this is possibly a once in a lifetime opportunity for that 5% or 1% of contributors to tap into something that is not classified as low income or affordable housing, which doesn't really strike a balance, but it is an opportunity. Notwithstanding, and because of the economic trends and the rise in prices from when the original concept of the towers came about and the proposed pricing points, a lot has changed since then. A lot of us are working from home since then. A lot of things, we are wearing masks now since then. So a lot of things have impacted how we live. And I'm certain from my experience in real estate, there are a lot of things that have impacted the built environment and the construction environment. And certainly I'm suspecting that this may have had an impact on the NHT, and they would now need to buffer for that. But just suppose they are looking at getting a profit based on these price points of 27 million, 30 odd million, and $40 million. Where would that money go? Is it going to the directors, or will it go back into the trust to possibly move the goal post from the mandate of say 9,000 homes in a particular period to now 10,000 homes in a particular period, because we have now received an extra income from the towers? So if the objective is as clean as that, if all the evidence support my my guesstimate of what I think is transpiring, then I think it will be a win-win for everyone. And this is not in support of the decision made, because I do not know what went behind the decision to build at Ruthven for NHT, and I certainly don't know what informed the actual price. But I, just from the market perspective, I do understand that the price is consistent with market and possibly a little bit below market, because I know of other developers that have built similar projects with more amenities and or equal amenities, and the prices are, you know, way above what is happening. So in my balanced approach, I would think about the 95% of contributors versus the 5% and the 1% that can afford, and what will the income from this project do for the NHT and other projects based on the mandate that has been given.
Very interesting. I want to take a quick look at the section 4 of the National Housing Trust Act. It's a very short section, but I won't read all of it, but it's pretty short. Functions of the trust. The functions of the trust shall be, and paragraph A under section 1, to add to and improve the existing supply of housing by paragraph 1 or subparagraph 1, Roman numeral 1, promoting housing projects to such extent as may from time to time be approved by the minister. 2, making available to such contributors as may be prescribed in such manner and on such terms and conditions as may be prescribed, loans to assist in the purchase, building, maintenance, repair, or improvement of houses. And 3, encouraging and stimulating improved methods of production of houses. There's a paragraph B that says to enhance the usefulness of the funds of the trust by promoting greater efficiency in the housing sector. And then there's a paragraph 1, there's a section 1A, and it actually mentions, in addition to the functions specified in subsection 1, the trust may provide financing of up to a maximum amount in the aggregate of $5 billion for projects for the development of education. And there's a paragraph 2, and it continues. Now, I'm not really seeing where the section seems to, you know, indicate that it must confine itself to low-income housing, or that it should really only be about low-income housing. In fact, it seems to just speak about housing generally. However, clearly the practice of the NHT and you know, all the relevant information they've been putting out over the years ad nauseum indicate that it's really about low-income housing or housing solutions for those who would have a challenge affording it otherwise. Now, to that extent, Mr. Diamond, in light of the legal provision that would clearly, in my view, allow for the trust to proceed with this project. However, I think what Mr. Diamond, you could be saying is that morally and ethically, they really ought not to be going ahead with this project. How do you see that in light of what the section actually says in the act?
Okay, I can actually say to that just because you have the right to do something doesn't mean that doing it is right. And that should have been the barometer they used to measure this particular project. Just as a quick example, back in the 1950s, in New York City, even now, New York City may be one of the most expensive places to live. Yet still,
it is one of the most expensive places to live.
It is. Now, what happened where housing it was concerned, affordable housing, the affordable housing programs did not look into how much it would cost to actually build a high-rise building in New York City. When it considered that, what it considered was income level of those individuals, they would like to have access to the city as well. So what I am getting here from the Ruthven Towers is that it was built considering the commercial rates and not necessarily the fact of the income levels of individuals whom they should have been catering to. It's almost as if we're living in
Diamond is that I'm not seeing where the act limits the trust to only a certain economic bracket, but continue.
Absolutely. I do agree that it doesn't specifically shows as if it's limiting just to those who make on the onto a certain income level. Yet we know by practice, as a matter of fact, when we look at the fact that, the practice of the NHT has always seemed to direct itself to affordable housing. That is no mistake in that. It's almost as if we're all living in an orphanage and we needed transportation and we put our money in a pool and the individual went out and bought a Ferrari. Now, yes, it is transportation, but it is not feasible to the purpose for which it's intended. So this is a similar situation where you go out and you took taxpayers' money to buy this Ferrari and says, well, guess what? It doesn't restrict us from what kind of transportation we should purchase. This is what's happening. When it comes down to a compulsory contribution of taxpayers' money, we have to be more sensible and reasonable, because individuals that can afford $40 million units, they're not living on the street. These individuals are not living on the street. Where are these individuals currently living?
If I could ask you to pause 1 second, Mr. Diamond, I want to read a section of the website of the National Housing Trust on the About page, about the NHT. The National Housing Trust is a established.
Youth Zoom, zeroing in on zealous youth. Yes, for the month of November, join us as we showcase our young people making big moves. Youth Zoom, every Tuesday and Thursday at 9:30 inside Love in the Morning. Zeroing in on zealous youth. November is Youth Month, so join us every Tuesday and Thursday at 9:30 inside Love in the Morning with me, Shivani Blair, your Youth Ambassador. Youth Month 2021. Come hear the stories, the testimonies, the hills and the valleys, and how they overcame. Join us for an exciting story. Youth Zoom, every Tuesday and Thursday at 9:30 inside Love in the Morning, zeroing in on zealous youth.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. I'm so sorry that we had a break in the live stream a while ago. Mr. Johnson, I don't know if you're back with us, as well as Mr. Diamond. Not sure what went wrong.
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Diamond, I was reading through a section of the website where clearly they are intending to provide housing solutions and other related solutions for the most needed Jamaicans or the most needed contributors. But as Mr. Howard Johnson just pointed out, Mr. Diamond, aren't both being done. They are doing some solutions for a small sector of the contributors who may not be in the needy category, as you're saying, but can't we have some balance and equity here?
I do find that there's some feasibility to that. Yet our reality should have been.
Ruthven Towers, by the way, is hardly New Kingston. It's almost on the outskirts of New Kingston. The media keeps saying it's in New Kingston. Ruthven Road is not normally considered as a part of New Kingston, but
location.
But really and truly, exactly. It may not be considered, but it certainly is within that prime attractiveness of New Kingston, because it's only footsteps away actually. So the reality, it is prime real estate. There's nothing wrong with NHT going into this type of project. If NHT went into this project to build this building and then sells it to a private developer, so he may sell it to $40 million occupants, that's fine. But the idea of it is that the perception is that this is not a trust, but actually a mistrust of the contributors. We already established that a large majority of contributors will never realize the benefit of NHT in their lifetime. So the
Well,
fact that it's
legally,
so
legally it's not
compulsory.
a mistrust, but I understand. I think I know where you're going, Mr. Diamond. Do you think that
So
I'll squeeze in this one last thing because we are totally out of
Mhm.
time, but because we had a break in the live stream. Mr. Diamond, are you opposed to the project because you see contributing to the NHD as a kind of income redistribution from the wealthy to the needy, so
From
to
the
speak,
poor.
and anything that would sort of give back to those who are not so needy is considered to be not in keeping with the income redistribution ethic, if I could call
I
it
would
that.
say absolutely, absolutely. It would be very
I figure that's
unethical,
where you were.
even
Yes, I figure that's where
even
you were.
though, again, even though you have the right to do something, doesn't mean that doing it is right. And the mere fact that if someone can afford a $40 million unit, those individuals are not in need of the NHT assistance, period. Their only contribution is because of the compulsory nature of the trust itself. If it was voluntary,
without being political, looking at it from a social science perspective, you're seeing the NHT as providing a socialistic type of benefit which you should never reverse. That's where your mind is,
well,
Mr. Diamond.
I will definitely say that a lot of the construction went into it, had that mindset. So the reality is the fact that these individuals, I'm not saying that they should not receive a benefit. It may not have been this particular project, or was it appropriate at this particular time? So when we
Well,
look at the
I
fact that it's compulsory, it is a compulsory contribution. Many of the
have to leave it
individuals
there
who
because
can
we're
afford
totally out
$40
of.
million
We
would
have to
never contribute to that trust if they had voluntary
understood.
options.
We have to leave it there because we're totally out of time. Very interesting thoughts, Mr. Diamond. I'm not saying I agree with you, but your thoughts are interesting, Mr. Johnson. Wish we had a little bit more time, but clearly our time is spent. I want to thank
Understood.
Mr. Howard Johnson and Mr. Michael Diamond for being guests with us. Stay with us, listeners. We're going to take a break now. Stay with us on the morning one. Stay with us.
Now with no processing fees and no down payment, it's time to open the door to your own sweet home. The time by JN Bank is
7:33.
Get buckets of savings from Sherwin-Williams from November 25 to December 23. Up to 40% off selected paints, 12% off decorative paints, 10% off automotive paints. Purchase 5 gallons of paint and get a Fleetwood paintbrush free. 6 to 9 gallons and get 2 Fleetwood paintbrushes free. And over 10 gallons, get a paint roller set absolutely free. Available at all Sherwin-Williams paint stores. Conditions apply.
Did you know Breeze powder detergent is also antibacterial? Even after washing, bacteria can remain on your clothes, which can cause diseases. Breeze kills 99.9% of bacteria while removing even the toughest stains. So really clean your clothes with Breeze.
It's almost Christmas and Phosphorus Super Sale is back. Yes, you heard it. Come Monday, November 22 to December 2, enjoy massive discounts on electrical and lighting products, LED bulbs, flood lamps, and so much more. COVID still a keep, so all protocols will be strictly observed. Step on down to Phosphorus in Kingston, Mandeville, and Montego Bay, or visit phosphorus.com/shop. It's Phosphorus Super Sale, November 22 to December 2. It's Phosphorus.
Since the start of the year, there have been 600 reports of emotional abuse, 1,203 reports of sexual abuse, 1,465 reports of physical abuse, 2,528 reports of neglect.
Report child abuse. Call 211.
I am Reverend Dr. George Mulrain.
And I am Bishop Christine Gooden-Bengushe.
And we are from the
Jamaica Methodist District. And we have been vaccinated.
For the COVID war that we're in, we will space ourselves well to win. And in love we'll fight cool and clean, armed with masks and with the vaccine. The vaccine's a blessing at least, and it's not the mark of the beast. As a symbol it shows we care for all with whom on this earth we share. For the COVID war that we're in, we will space ourselves well to win. And in love we'll fight cool and clean, armed with mask and with the vaccine.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Let's take a look at the newspapers. And we have here in the Gleaner, states of emergency extended after battle, as well as Caldwell gets back visa on the front page of the Daily Observer. Teachers not greedy. JTA blast government 4% wage offer, says educators deserve proper compensation. Those among many other stories in both major daily newspapers. Coming up next, we'll repeat some of the feedback from our Facebook and WhatsApp question, which is, what are your thoughts on mandating fraternity DNA testing? If you haven't done so, leave your responses on our Facebook or YouTube Love One and FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp your comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll be right back.
We're counting down the days to that magical time of year. And at Active Home Center, we have so many gifts to share. Since we're home together for the holidays, let's make every room and floor feel the magic this Christmas from the treasures we have in store. Tiles, kitchen and appliances, windows and doors, bathrooms, furniture, lighting, and so much more. Visit our showroom at 84 Council Spring Road and find everything you need to make magic in your home. Active Home Center. More savings, more choices.
Pay your water bill. Keep the benefits flowing to wash your clothes and dishes. It's a small price for a big service. That was a message from the NWC.
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&B Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jnbank.com to get pre-approved today. J&B Bank will help you find a way.
Hello.
Hello?
Goodbye.
Goodbye? What are you doing?
I'm saying hello to peace of mind and goodbye to worry.
Oh, I'd like to say that too.
Well, with Guardian Life's new ultimate provider, you can secure your medical expenses in the event of critical illness ahead of time and benefit from their investment portfolio too.
Wow. So it's hello peace of mind
and goodbye worry with Guardian Life's new ultimate provider. For more information, contact 888-367-5433 or talk to one of our representatives. Guardian Life. Live secure. Live easy.
I know, man. She gets out of bed even when she doesn't feel like it. She works long hours and rarely gets a break. She gives of herself every single day and has a very important job.
Here you go, sweetie. Do you need anything else?
But this woman is not only a nurse, she is also my mom. And Malta helps her care for herself so she can look after everybody else. And me too. Thanks, Mommy. Thanks, Malta.
Malta, you're full of life.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the second watch. Well, Neeson, sir.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Any comments to our feedback question?
I see Edna over here saying, I think it's a very good idea to have a paternity test at birth of a child because it will fill the gap of uncertainty whether the child belongs to the given father or not. There are too many problems in that area.
Very interesting. Any more, or that's it so far?
That's it so far. No traffic on
Well,
this.
the question is, who is the daddy? And it is often $1 million question. DNA test can cost up to $40,000. And there has been a proposal by a member of parliament, Mr. Heroy Clark, member of parliament for Central St. James, that the government should consider or should be allowing for or should ensure that there is mandatory DNA testing from birth. We'll have him on this morning to explain and to state exactly what he meant and why he said it. He had also indicated in his address to Parliament that issues of the wrong person being put forward as the father when they are not the biological father, in fact, has caused violence in the home, And that aspect of his proposal, I would say, caused quite a lot of, furor in the public domain. Nonetheless, we have Mr. Heroy Clark on this morning. It's not often that we have the relevant person who made the statement himself on air to explain exactly what he meant. He's on with us this morning, Mr. Heroy Clark, Member of Parliament for Central St. James. Good morning, Mr. Clark. Are you with us?
Morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Clark. Honorable
Yes, good
Mr.
morning.
Clark. Honorable Mr. Clark, a pleasure having you. Now, going by all the furor in the media in relation to what you said, my concern is that maybe the kernel of what you intended has been a little bit lost, and you are on this morning. Why did you, for instance, even propose it in the first place, mandatory DNA testing? And then, secondly, why did you go on to indicate that issues or controversies about who the father is have caused gender-based violence? Violence between the lady and the gentleman who are having this conflict. Start with why the mandatory DNA testing. Is it that you got a request from a constituent about the need for this? Why did you go there in the first place?
First and foremost, let me say good morning to all the listeners out there in Radio Land, and I'm very pleased and happy that you found it necessary to have me on your program. The whole argument of paternity fraud has been a long-standing issue in Jamaica for quite some time, even before the phrase paternity fraud was coined. We would have had that ever since time. But it is something that is of great importance to the society, that we seek to make sure that things are in a formal and in a correct, true to form way. The essence of it, though, is that Jamaica, the government of Jamaica, has a responsibility to its citizens. But most importantly, they have the responsibility of every child that is born up until they're 18. And therefore, it is the task of the government to make sure that each child is in society, live in society, without or as minimal as amount of abuse. And so it is my thinking from quite some time now, even going to primary school, when you'd have had situation where a child would be embarrassed, a child would be heckled, a child would be teased, into the fact that the others would, for some reason, hear or come to know that whosoever that particular child is calling their dad would not be their biological father, and so it becomes a teasing argument for that child. And so the child,
not the biological father, because they are considered a quote unquote jacket, or because they're adopted. What
exactly,
biological father, for what reason?
So whenever a child is adopted,
No.
Children will accept the fact that the child is adopted. That is fine. That is legitimate. That is legal. That is accepted. When a child is said to be a jacket, then that's a different situation. The whole argument, though, is that it ties in. It is, as I said before, it is not the main cause. It is not the only cause, but it is one of the causes of domestic violence in the home.
Because when you say that it's one of the main causes of domestic violence in the home, you are citing a particular study.
It is one of the causes of domestic violence.
And you were citing a particular study when you said that?
No, I did cite a particular survey done by Dr. Herbert Gill, not to say that it is for domestic violence, but for the high level of fathers or men who are given a child that is not theirs.
So you're not saying that study show that there's a connection between domestic violence and
it's not the case of domestic violence that I'm worried about. It is a case of the paternity fraud from day one. That is what I'm concerned about, the emotional stress of the child, the abuse that the child will go through on finding out that that man is not his or her father. I am saying that we owe it to the child to make sure that it is known from birth. And it
I just
works.
want something to be clear, Mr. Clark, because you're online to explain exactly what you meant, and I want to ask you some probing questions. You are saying that you had never had a link in your presentation between domestic violence
I'm not saying that.
and.
No, I'm not saying that. No, I'm not saying that.
Oh, okay.
I did mention that it is one of the causes.
You did say so.
I'm
Okay.
not saying it is not. And we let us not bury our head in the sand. We do understand that yes, it does have some connection with domestic violence. It does.
You are saying that, okay.
Yes,
and
I am
and you're using Dr. Gale's report as justification for this, or not really?
No, not as a justification for the domestic violence, but for the high percentage of jacket, as you would like to use that term.
Okay. I just wanted that to be clear. Okay, so now that you have clarified that, why is it that you would like mandatory DNA testing? Let's move to that now.
But what the mandatory testing at birth will do, it will minimize the level of stress on the male, which should be the father, and the child, to find out at age 9, 10, somewhere, anywhere in between, to say that the man that I have been bonding with for the past 12 or 13 years is not my real father. The child that I nurture, I comfort for 12, 13 years is not my child. If you find out at birth, when the child just come into life, into being, then it is not, it is my opinion, it is not as stressful, it is not an emotional shock as if you find out at a later date, 12 or 13 years down the road.
Well, it may be an emotional shock regardless at any point in time, but at least you would have found out early.
Not as stressful as if you would be bonding with a child for 12 or 13 years. Okay, but notwithstanding all of that, what it does at birth is to say, okay, here's the scenario. The child is born, the DNA is done, the gentleman in question is not the father. It gives him the peace of mind from get-go that, okay, I have to move on with my life. But
stick up in Mr. Clark. Stick up in Member of Parliament, Mr. Clark. There's a little bit of a delay because you're not on the live stream and I'm on the live stream. So sometimes when I'm speaking or I'm trying to interject, you may not hear me right away. So please forgive us for that. However, if the gentleman finds out at birth that the child is in fact not his, when he was very connected to the mother of this child, very emotionally tied to that mother, might not that also ignite him towards domestic violence or any kind of, wrong reaction to her at that point?
Here it is, that at that age, you're saying he's only connected emotionally in a serious way to one person, which is the mother. Give the reason that the child comes into being, spend 9 or 10 years in life, he will be connected
or longer,
to the mother.
or longer.
For longer. He will be connected to not one person, but two persons now, the mother and the child. I am saying, let us look at it from birth, because we want to minimize the stress, the emotional stress or the emotional abuse, the shock that person will have. So you get rid of it at birth. But hear me out. Once a child is born and the father is not, or the male is not the father, there are two scenarios. He either move on, or he would say, I still want to be in that child's life. So an adoption section will be right there. And he can now adopt that child will get his name. But everybody will know that the child is an adopted child. And so anything beyond that in life, whether migration or a medical procedure, you will know from get-go that the child is a foster child, is an adopted
Because, you know,
child.
many times the father, the assumed father, doesn't know he's not the father until maybe something comes up in
When you
relation
go
to
to court
immigration.
for child maintenance, or he's filing for the child to go abroad, or there's a medical procedure to be done and it requires a family member to be of support in whichever way medically to that to that
You
child.
mean the giving of blood?
Yes.
Yeah. We are now at this juncture, sir, where there has been a lot of heat poured on your suggestion because, and I agree with some of what I've heard, that you can't make a direct link between finding out that someone is not your real child and domestic violence. I mean, we should all learn and know how to control our emotions. How do you respond now to those criticisms of your suggestion in that regard?
Criticism will come, but what I will say to those many or the few critics is that don't worry yourself about the secrets that are already hidden and buried. It is this motion, if come into law, is from the time that it has been passed onward, not to go back into the past. So nobody has to worry about what is in the past. I am saying that going forward, each child must know by way of DNA that that man who says or it is said to be their father is their biological father. So the birth certificate will not only say the child's name, the father's name, and the mother's name. It will now an added section will be there to say DNA testing and the results shown. So
Should pay
once
for
you
this.
go
The
to the
government should pay
embassy,
for this. The
sorry.
government should pay. The government should pay for these DNA tests.
Yes, the government. I am proposing that the government should pay for it because a lot of persons are saying that DNA testing are expensive. DNA testing are expensive because it is the private personnel who are doing it now, and they're doing it for a profit. And so you will understand that yes, you're doing it for a profit. You're going to put the markup in it. But once it is in law that DNA should be done, then the government will. The only thing expense that the government will have now is to create that lab that is to do the testing. That cost will be upfront, yes, and you will continue to pay the salary of the persons who are going to man the lab, nothing else. So it
So
becomes a part.
you would propose as well. Well, let me not put words in your mouth. You sound like you're saying a separate lab should be created for this. Yes.
If so be the case that a lab has to be set up for that, then yes, we are moving with time, and so it is not just for paternity testing that DNA is used. It is used for just about everything, even in criminology today, forensic. You will need it, so it is not going to be only for paternity testing. It is going to. It can be used. The government will now have it set up for the usage.
Would you consider the inclusion of the private sector? In other words, private sector labs could do these tests once they're receiving the relevant, I don't know, subsidy or whatever that is from the government of Jamaica.
That part of it is left for government to think about or to discuss and to come up with the conclusion of that aspect. If the government want to go the way of private sector or partnership, or they want to do it on their own, then that is left up to the technocrats within government. But also what I want you to understand that the paternity test will cause our adult to be more responsible. One of the things that we also want to capture, and I didn't get to bring it out because of the short time in Parliament when I made mention of the motion to come, is that we have in our society a lot of adult male that are going to underage girls, and that is also part of child abuse that we need to nip. We need to nip in the bud. And I think it is my opinion that this paternity test at birth, also mandatory paternity test, will get that under control, in the sense that even in some areas you have female mothers who have to send them underage daughters to the dance, or the dance just take them onto themselves, and the child, that child gets pregnant. It is not the dance name that the child is registered in, but the little school boyfriend. These are things that we need to nip in the bud. This is all that I'm saying. Let us nip it from get-go, from birth, that it is mandatory for DNA testing, so we will know definitely that is not the schoolboy Tom Jones who is really the father, but the father is out there somewhere.
I think aspects of your proposal are quite brave. I do have an issue though with when you initially had connected it to domestic violence, but be that as it may. On another note, though, the People's National Party's women's movement, their president, had indicated that the parties, the man and the woman, really ought properly to have a conversation around the issue of whether or not to do a DNA test. I'm not quoting her. I'm trying to paraphrase as best as possible what she said. However, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, because yes, I mean, why not let the parties just make up their minds as to whether they want to do a DNA test? Why intervene? Why should the government intervene with mandatory testing?
Because the most important factor in the conversation is not the female, it is not the male adult, but really the child that the government has the responsibility.
So you think it's in the best interest of the child for that DNA test to be done to see who the child's father is?
Even with your child, who I believe you're giving all the care and comfort and nurturing to, the government of the day still has a responsibility to that child. And so there are different agencies within the government that has an oversight for those kids.
You made a very interesting point, oversight for those kids. And we're almost out of time already, but you made a very interesting point. I didn't know you were going to go there, but you have gone there, and I won't extend it. We can't extend the time of the program because we're literally out of time. Don't you see this as a form of big government mandating what should be done about your child or your assumed child? Why should the government remain as small as possible and stay out of the business of the family in that regard?
Sorry?
Why should the government remain as small as possible and stay out of family business as much as possible? Isn't this another way of intruding into the life of the family, sir?
No, it's not. The government has a responsibility to its citizens, and as much as possible in the best interest of the family, because we understand that family life in Jamaica has been shattered somewhat. Let us fight, let us work together. Let us all work together. Both private, government, individuals work together.
You're not trying to override the rights of the parents in doing this.
No, I don't think so. I don't think
so. You there this morning, Mr. Clark. I think we're totally out of time. It's about 8 o'clock now. I want to thank Mr. Clark, Member of Parliament, Eroy Clark, for joining us this morning. Very interesting conversation. Thanks to our listeners for being with us. Join us again tomorrow. And of course, you can connect with us online. Love 101 FM YouTube channel, Love 101 FM programs are there. Of course, Facebook. And stay connected to us by downloading our Love 101 app. And of course, listen to us, the family station, the number one gospel station in Jamaica, the number one gospel station in Jamaica. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and to our guest. I am Stokeley Marshall, handing it back to Love in the Morning with Neeson Williams.
Hey, thank you so very much, sir. Do have yourself a wonderful rest of the day.
I do hope that you all have a wonderful day too.
Thank you, Mr. Member of Parliament, Mr. Clark. You are Clark. Thank you very much.
Nick, thank you for listening to